Okay, well, according to my clock, we're right on the hour, so I think we can get started because, of course, we have another full agenda for people today. Welcome, welcome. My name is Ellen Miller. I am Pro Bono Manager at the National Immigrant Justice Center, and I'm here with my colleague Alejandra Oliva, who is one of our communications coordinators, and we are honored to be your co-host for this special presentation today. It's a special presentation because normally we try to provide for our network updates in immigration law and policy. And today we are going to share different updates. And we'd like to update you on all that we've been able to accomplish this past year and in terms of having a positive impact on humanity. So today you're going to hear voices, stories from our community that have showed strength in the face of struggle. On this long road to justice, we face a series of minor and major setbacks, challenges that may delay, infuriate, or reroute our progress. The personal experiences shared by clients, pro bono attorneys, NIJC staff, and our colleagues from partner organizations today show just a few of the ways that our community persists and has persisted through yet another incredible year. So as we enter into this holiday season, we are taking this next hour as a way to thank you, our community, for all that you do. With your support, we believe that we are making this world a safer and more dignified place for all. And for that, we are so grateful. So now to get started on the fun, Alejandra is going to tell you a little bit more about what to expect.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Yeah, we have a really great series of speakers and guests for you today. We'll first be hearing a little bit more from Ellen about NIJC, who we are and what we do. And then she'll be followed by our pro bono partners from Winston Strawn, Catherine Hunt and Olga Podoskaya. And they'll be talking a little bit about the process of securing asylum for Max and reuniting him with his family. We're really also lucky that Max will hopefully be joining us live to talk a little bit about what that journey has been like for him. After that, we'll move on to NIJC attorney Amanda Cruz-Slazak, who will talk a little bit about Kevin and his case, which has been going on for 7 years now, and the different twists and turns that that's taken. And we'll be able to hear from him a little bit as well through a statement. After that, we'll be joined by Caitlin Tupper from the Center on Halstead, where she'll talk a little bit about the amazing work that they do supporting LGBT immigrants and the ways that we've partnered with them. And finally, I'll jump back in to tell you about Greta, who is one of our incredible clients who wrote a letter to President Biden about the need for a better immigration system, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, we'll wrap up by telling you a little bit about what you can do to get involved with our work and then answer any questions that you might have. You'll see that you have a chat option. Feel free to drop in, ask us any questions, give any feedback that you have as the panel's ongoing, and we'll address some of those in the Q&A at the end.
Awesome, yeah. If you want to drop in the chat now from where you're joining us, we'd love to hear, the scope of who we're talking to today. So feel free to drop that in the chat. And for those of you that have not joined us before, I'm just going to give a quick overview of who is the National Immigrant Justice Center. What do we do? And so we are a part of Heartland Alliance. It is an agency that's based in Chicago. However, we do have 5 offices in NIJC across the country. So our largest office is in Chicago. We have 2 offices in Indiana. Our policy team is based in Washington, D.C., and we have a presence on the southern border of the United States in San Diego. At NIJC, one of the reasons that I love to work here and to engage with this great network is because of our integral service model. So we at NIJC try to lift up the voices of our clients and legal advocates, as our mission is to ensure access to justice and a fair immigration system. We do this through these 3 pillars you'll see here, the first being national and local advocacy, combined with federal impact litigation, and then, of course, direct legal services. Over this past year, we've been able to serve 9,000 non-citizen clients. And of course, that's only possible with our wonderful network of pro bono attorneys. So again, as Alejandra mentioned, if you have any questions or comments, anything that you'd like to share with us along the way, please drop that in the chat. I will say that this presentation is being recorded and we will post it on our website in just the next couple of days. Okay. So let's get it turned over to Kate, Olga, and I don't believe Max has yet joined us.
Hi everyone, my name is Olga Potocka. I'm an attorney from Winston Strawn, and I'm joined by my teammate, Kate Hunt. We will wait for Max to join and give his spiel, but we'll start off with ours first. If we go to the next slide. So Max will give you a little bit more background on his experiences in Uganda, but essentially he was recruited by the National Resistance Movement, which is Uganda's ruling political party, back in 2016 as a youth organizer. And he, at that point in time, he was young, he was supporting the NRM, he felt like their mission was his mission, but I think very shortly after he became aware that the NRM did not really support the values that he wanted Uganda to live by. And so he began secretly supporting a rival political party called People Power. And so at that time, Max knew that the NRM really did not look at individuals leaving their party fondly. And so he started supporting People Power in secret. And he did so for quite a while until that became evident to the NRM. And so he was arrested on his way to work one day, and he was imprisoned for 97 days in horrible conditions under false pretenses. And eventually he was bailed out by his family and friends, but he continued to be persecuted, and eventually that led to his escape from Uganda. And again, Max, when he joins, will be able to provide a little bit more color to his experience. But Max had to travel through 5 different countries and was at the Mexican border for quite a few months until he was able to enter the United States as an asylum seeker, at which point some time had passed and he was introduced to us through NIJC, and we began to represent him. We go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So Max, it was very important to Max to secure an early asylum hearing in order to be reunited with his family. His family is still in Uganda, and he was and continues to be very concerned for their safety. And so we expressed some reservations about an expedited hearing that we shared with Max. Obviously, merits hearings take a lot of obvious preparation, and many asylum seekers wait over 2 years to even get a merits hearing. And so I think on one hand, we didn't want Max to have a false sense of how quickly this could go. And on another hand, we knew that we needed a significant amount of time to present his case and for him to have the best chance possible to be able to secure asylum. And of course, if the immigration judge did not agree with us and with our assessment of the case, there was a chance of Max to be sent home to Uganda, which was extremely dangerous for him and for his family. And so we talked to Max about all of these concerns, and Max chose to forge ahead. And so at that point, Kate and I called the judge's clerk, the immigration judge assigned to him, several times a week, trying to find basically any opening in her calendar. Thankfully, the clerk was very understanding of our persistence, and she entertained our multitude of calls. And eventually we were able to secure a time for him and get the hearing, which was earlier this summer. And the Winston team had 30 days to prepare for that hearing.
Thanks, Olga. So part of the asylum proceeding is that we would have to submit materials to support Max's case, like a brief, an affidavit from Max, and other supporting materials. And so we had, at this point, had Max's case for about a year. And so we had already been working on these materials, but certainly once we got our hearing date, and it was so quick, it really was a mad dash, and all hands on deck to get everything prepared for the hearing. prepared in time for the hearing. Just for a little bit of context, we weren't expecting to be able to get a hearing until sometime mid-2022 at the earliest. And so we really lucked out here to be able to, I think, take another, like a cancellation spot. I'm not entirely sure how it worked. It could have been the clerk was just tired of hearing from us. But so we were able to secure the spot, but it was a rush to get all the materials together to support Max's case. Here, credibility is key. The judge had never met Max before. The judge had never heard Max before or anything like that. She just had some paper filings related to his case. So based on that and based on Max's credibility, during the hearing, she would be making the determination about whether or not Max really did qualify for asylum. And so we wanted to have as much support for Max as possible during the hearing. And so our team, along with Max, worked hard, very hard in this really short period of time to get everything ready. So like I mentioned, that's including a brief, that's including Max's affidavit and supporting materials like contemporaneous news articles that would corroborate, persecution of a political, opponent by the NRM. And so we would have more to be able to provide the judge to show, what he's saying is true and these things happened and he meets the criteria to be granted asylum. Another aspect of it that was getting several experts to prepare affidavits to support his case. So we had a medical expert, we had a psychologist, and we also had a country conditions expert, all of whom were able to assess Max's description of his experience and help corroborate it. For example, the country conditions expert was a professor who has on-the-ground experience in Uganda. She has contacts in Uganda. She has published extensively on the political situation in Uganda, including tactics the NRM uses to persecute and harass political dissidents or members of the opposing political parties, including the use of violence, the use of the military, and the use of the police to go after people that are speaking out against NRM. And so she was able to look at Max's experience and his description of his experience and talk about how that lines up with what she has seen historically in the past and what she's currently seeing with what the government is doing. And so that further supports Max's case. We also had several meetings with Max to prepare him for his testimony so that he had a chance to, say out loud everything that he was going to be talking about, and get used to the question and answer format of the courtroom. We also did mock questions for what we expected the government's attorneys to ask him, so he would have a chance to practice, responding to questions that the court or the government could ask. And so then finally, the date of the hearing came, and thankfully Max was granted asylum. The hearing lasted a few hours. We had about 90 minutes to put on Max's case, and he did just an excellent job. Very clearly, presented his case to the court. He answered questions by the government's attorneys and by the judge, and ultimately the court agreed that, his case certainly warrants asylum. Thankfully as well, the court agreed to waive its right to an appeal of the court's ruling, so we don't have to worry about addressing an appeal. And so this was a lot of work crunched into a short time to be able to try to get him asylum, to make sure that he is safe and he doesn't have to return to Uganda. Unfortunately, Max's struggle still isn't over because his wife and children are still in Uganda, and they are still very much at risk of persecution based on what the government knows about Max. And so he is currently working with another immigration attorney to apply for a derivative asylum for his wife and children. And hopefully he will be able to get them here soon so the whole family can be together and be safe.
That's fabulous. Thank you both for sharing. I see that Max was on. Max, are you still there?
Yes, I'm on.
Awesome.
Hey, Max.
Hi, Kat. Hi, Olga. Hi, everyone.
Max, do you want to share? Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry,
Go
Ellen,
ahead.
I was just going to share.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Max, so Olga and I'm not sure where you jumped in. We talked about a bit about your case background and then also the case. Is there anything that you want to share with everyone about either what you're doing to try and help your wife and family come to the United States, or about, what you experienced or what's going on in Uganda now?
Yeah, right now, I'll talk about two things. Maybe, I don't know if some of you have seen the news right already. There was a bombing in the capital, Uganda, which has killed many people and injured many people right now, which happened today morning. And before, last week, you remember I told you there was a bomb brought just 2 houses from where my family is. And thank God that it was disconnected before something happened. But the situation in Uganda right now is very bad. That's one thing I should say. I don't know where you guys want me to start from. I just came in when Olga, I think, was concluding with her speech, and then I had a little bit of yours. What I'm trying to do to help with my family, I've tried to ask the immigration, my attorneys, to help me to expedite the case, which we are looking at. They have asked so that we can get some letters to approve that. And then I've given them the stories, which is happening right now. I don't know, I'm just praying if things are really, really bad. So we have only two options. One is to ask for expedition of the I-730, which we have already received their receipts. And then another thing is they have also advised us to ask for humanitarian parole, which we are still working on. So those are the only two things we are trying to look at, but we don't know. We're just trying out to see how they can be out of the country. Yeah.
Thank you, Max. And we've talked about this numerous times. We very much hope that they can get here very soon.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know.
Thank you, Max. I would just ask one more question, if that's all right, Max. And,
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot going on and it's scary what's happening in Uganda with your family. For you, what does it mean to have asylum right now, to be granted asylum?
To me right now, it means a lot. I feel like I'm kind of relieved, even if my family is still away from me, which is really scaring. But it wouldn't have been the same case, because before I won my asylum, I didn't know where I belong. I mean, I was like, what if they don't grant me asylum and they have to deport me back to the country? That means I'm going to be prosecuted and be killed. So I feel better because I feel I'm in a safe place, but I feel at the same time I'm worried about my family. So I'm just in that kind of life.
Right. Thank you. Well, we are also glad you are safe, and we hope that your family and you can be reunited very, very shortly. Olga and Kate, thank you so much, and Max, for your time, for joining us and for all that you do for NIJC and the mission. We're now going to move on to hear from Amanda.
Hi, everyone. As Ellen mentioned, my name is Amanda Cruz-Slazak, and I'm an attorney with the Asylum Project here at NIJC. And I'm going to talk about a case that we've been working on since 2014, so for the past 7 years, which I think really illustrates the resiliency and perseverance required of our clients to resolve their immigration cases, as well as the complex and frustrating nature of our immigration system in general. So this case also, I think, illustrates what we so often see with our clients, how they start off eligible for one form of relief at our first consultation, and then as the years go on, they become eligible for other forms of relief depending on what happens in their life here in the United States, as well as how things change in their home country. And we're fortunate here at NIJC to be able to provide direct services to our clients in many different areas, including Special Immigrant Juvenile Status, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, but also asylum, U visas, T visas, VAWA, DACA, and other areas as well that are listed on the slide right now. So as those additional issues come up, we're able to address them with our clients. And as I mentioned, in this particular case, I'm going to be talking about my client Kevin and his long journey to get his Special Immigrant Juvenile Status petition approved. So for those of you who are not familiar with Special Immigrant Juvenile Status, or SIJS, it's available to children who have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both of their parents. And to be eligible for SIJS, a juvenile court in the United States must determine that the child has in fact been abused, neglected, or abandoned, or a similar basis under state law by one of their parents, and that it's not in their best interest to return to their home country. They have to be placed in the custody of an individual or an agency. But once the state court issues that order, the child can submit their SIJS petition, which is adjudicated by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And then once that's approved, they would be able to apply for legal permanent residency, which is when they would actually get legal status. The SIJS petition does not, unfortunately, confer legal status. So they have to become a legal permanent resident at that point. So that's kind of a basic overview of SIJS. And so I'll kind of talk more about Kevin's case in particular. So he entered the United States in July of 2014 when he was just 14 years old. He entered as an unaccompanied child, which means that when immigration officials encountered him at the border, he was under the age of 18. He did not have legal status, and he was not with a parent or legal guardian who was available to provide custody for him. So immigration officials determined him to be an unaccompanied child and then transferred him to the custody of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And that's where we encountered him. So we at NIJC gave him a Know Your Rights presentation and also provided a legal screening. Which during that legal screening, we determined that he was in fact eligible for SIJS because of the fact that his father had abandoned him when he was just a baby. So we began representing him at that point in around August of 2014, and we were representing him for SIJS and removal defense because he had been placed in deportation proceedings at that time as well. So he's kind of on a two-track process. He was released to his mother to live with his mother in Indiana in around November of 2014, and we were able to place his case with pro bono attorneys in Indiana who were able to take on the juvenile court portion of the case. So that original order that he had to get that from a state juvenile court in the United States that stated that he had in fact been abandoned by his father and that it wasn't in his best interest to return to his home country. So the pro bono attorneys in Indiana were working hard to obtain that order. But fast forward to 2018, we still didn't have the order due to some pretty significant procedural issues. The judge in the juvenile court in Indiana had not issued the order at that point. Kevin was about to turn 18, and we were very concerned that the immigration judge would not continue to continue his case in immigration court without us being able to show more movement in the SIJS case, because we had not been able to obtain the order we needed, and we had not been able to obtain or to file the SIJS petition yet. So at that point, we reassessed his case. There had been some pretty significant events happening in his home country. So we kind of delved into that. We talked with him and we talked with his mom, who was able to shed some more light on what was going on in the country and what was going on with their family members in home country. And so based on that reassessment, we determined that he was eligible for asylum at that point due to the change in country conditions. So in around March of 2019, we began representing him for asylum as well. And we filed his asylum application pretty soon after that. And we were actually able to place him with a different pro bono team for his asylum case. And they have continued to represent him in the asylum case, and that case is still pending. But in September of 2019, so a new pro bono team took over his the juvenile court piece in Indiana, because the original attorneys on his pro bono team had actually left the firm. So a new pro bono team took over, and they were able to make some headway, fortunately, with the judge in the juvenile court, and were eventually able to obtain the state court order that was necessary for him to be able to apply for SIJS. So they got that juvenile court order in November of 2020, and we were able to file his SIJS petition finally in January of this year, so January of 2021. And it was just a few months before he completely aged out of eligibility. So you have to file the SIJS petition before the child turns 21. And we were just a few months away from that, but we were able to get it filed before that deadline. And we received a request for more evidence on the petition from USCIS in June of this year. So in order to establish his age and his identity, we had filed his birth certificate, but his birth had not been registered in his home country until he was around 13 years old. So although the government had accepted this birth certificate for the whole time he's been here, when he entered the country and all of that, they were not going to accept it for purposes of this petition and for purposes of proving his identity and his age, because his birth had not been timely registered. So we kind of scrambled to gather as much evidence, secondary evidence, as we could from his home country, and then medical records and school records and everything that we could find to prove that his age. And we filed that shortly after we got that request. And then last month, we finally, his SIJS petition was finally approved. So 7 years into the process, he was finally has the approved SIJS petition. And even though we're this far along, he does not yet have legal status, because we now have to file for legal permanent residency for him. But there is a light at the end of the road, at least, and hopefully his case will be resolved in the next few months or years or so. But he has shown quite a bit of perseverance in the face of a lot of obstacles. So we're really excited to at least have that SIJ petition approved, and then to be able to move forward on the adjustment application and to terminate his removal proceedings as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. We're actually now going to hear from, he recorded a statement for us today that we can listen to hear his feelings about this. We also understand that non-English speakers get a little bit nervous when reading in English. And so we're just so grateful to have his statement here. So let me just get this set up, and we will hear from him. Just one moment, sorry.
Hello, my name is Kevin. I came to the U.S. from Nicaragua when I was 14 to reunite with my mom. I have been an NIJC client from just about 7 years, ever since they came to give a presentation at the Young Shuttle where I was staying. When I was smaller, I didn't really understand my case, and to be honest, I didn't pay it too much attention. I was just a kid. I was thinking about other things. However, as I got older and more mature, I began to understand just how important it is to have a legal status in order to live well here. I have learned that the most important things about the immigration system is have patience. It's been really good to have my legal team by my side for so long. There were times during the process to get juvenile visa where I had almost stopped believing I will get it. I still wanted to be able to move forward with my case, but I was still surprised when my lawyer called me and told me it was approved. Knowing that they had been working on it all along was such a good feeling. The next step is to get my work permit and then apply for a legal permanent residence. This is especially important because my daughter was born this year and I wasn't able to have my name on her birth certificate because I didn't have my ID from here or from Nicaragua. It was incredibly frustrating. It was almost as if I didn't exist. I'm really glad and I can get that changed, both for my daughter and for my baby, we are expecting next year.
So there you hear from Kevin and the work that he's done with the legal team and all that they've accomplished, and we're so grateful for that. Caitlin, we're excited to hear from you also.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Caitlin Tupper. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of the Anti-Violence Project at Center on Halstead, and I'm here to speak with you all about supporting and serving LGBTQ asylum seekers. So to share with y'all about the Anti-Violence Project at Center on Halstead, we serve LGBTQ and allied survivors of violence. We define violence as domestic violence, community violence, sexual violence, discrimination, stalking, and harassment. All of our services are no cost to survivors, so that's a huge piece in being able to get folks linked up with quality care. We work really closely with NIJC, that we provide individual therapy services, case management, and advocacy, and so often we'll coordinate with NIJC attorneys just to make sure that we're on the same page and that we're supporting survivors. And that can really help survivors feel like they have a sense of team behind them and feel that they're not alone in their experiences. We often cross-refer, that sometimes we have folks reach out to us at our LGBTQ violence resource line, wanting to know what their rights are, what their options are, and then we're able to get them connected to an NIJC attorney. In addition to the direct services that we provide, we also offer presentations and trainings, and that's what brings me here today, that's really important piece of our work, to be able to raise awareness of what this is like for LGBTQ folks and give a voice to their experiences. We also facilitate some community events, attend different community events to allow for folks to be able to create a sense of belonging and a sense of space too. Again, to try to help foster feelings of community and helping folks feel that they're not so isolated in their experiences too. So going over some of the barriers, I heard some of this with Max and Kevin's stories, but certainly can show up in some unique ways for LGBTQ folks. And why I bring this forward today is I think it is important to name all of the cumulative barriers to really be able to appreciate the resiliency of LGBTQ folks and to honor all of the challenges that they can have, even first reaching out to us for support in the first place. A big piece of experiencing trauma is the shock and fear that can come with it too. That we know if folks have experienced a traumatic event or trauma throughout their lifespan, there can be a lot of difficulty trying to process that experience and understand what it was that they underwent. And their minds and their bodies can go into shock as a way just to keep them safe. What we also do see with asylum seekers is a lot of cultural shock when coming to the US and getting acclimated to the norms that we have here, a different environment, and just a different way of living and being. There's so much homophobic, transphobic, biphobic rhetoric that still exists. So that can cause a lot of shame and guilt and stigma for folks to even name that they're part of community or feel comfortable in reaching out. So that's where we really always honor the bravery that it takes for someone to be vulnerable enough to get connected to services and to supports for them. With concerns with outing self and lack of LGBTQ affirming care, I hear that all the time from the survivors that we give support to. And that's where it's so crucial that there are LGBTQ affirming spaces like Center on Halstead, like NIJC, because that does create that sense of trust for folks. That I am very open with my disclosure that I'm part of community, I identify as a queer woman, and that can be really comforting for folks to hear that too. And to know that I am part of community, so we'll be leading with acceptance and understanding. Isolation is something that is really prevalent for LGBTQ asylum seekers, that I've heard from folks, even though they may be living with people, they still feel very lonely because they may not be able to be their full selves. For example, I was working with a survivor that first did the intake for him to be able to access individual therapy and group therapy services, and he was referred from NIJC. I was able to get him connected with a colleague in behavioral health services and was able to get connected with the coming out group. And a few months after we did that intake, we were hosting a storytelling event at Center on Halstead. And I was able to see him there, and he had really bright, vibrant, colorful hair that looks like he had just dyed. He seemed really confident and embodied in himself, and he was able to be there with a few friends. So it was really beautiful to be able to witness that he was able to build more of a support network. Bond to the person who harmed them. What that means is a lot of folks can experience violence and abuse from the people who they love and care about the most, whether it's a family member, a friend, an intimate partner. So that's again where it can be really difficult for folks to be able to share their narratives and experiences. And that's where we work a lot in therapy, is trying to give words or give language to what they went through and help them process the harm that they've undergone. And that can help them with their legal case, being able to have a trauma narrative to speak to what they've undergone and what they've overcome. A lot of folks can internalize the violence that they've experienced. I was working with a client that had experienced quite a bit of violence in his home country, and then coming to Chicago, experienced a hate crime. And it was really difficult for him to process all of that, and was feeling like he had done something wrong and wondering, what is it about me that people are targeting? Or what is it that people are seeing in me that they don't like, that they hate? So we did a lot of work around, normalizing his worries and his fears, and trying to give him some other ways to feel safe and some other ways for him to feel that he could be connected with others. I've also heard this from folks that was working with a client, and she began a relationship here in the US, and that relationship quickly became abusive. And for her, she didn't recognize it as abuse because she was so desensitized to violence. So I was able to give her some education about healthy relationships and help assure her that that violence was not her fault and not her responsibility. With cultural concerns, there's many folks who are part of LGBTQ community that can be really hesitant about reaching out to culturally specific agencies, even though those agencies may share some of their identities. Agencies may be catered to folks who have their same nationalities. They can still feel a lot of worry that folks will judge them once they've outed themselves, or worry that there will be gossip between folks who work there, or will get out to communities that they may share. And even though we've talked about confidentiality and HIPAA, those fears are still very much real and still very much there, and informed by what they have undergone in the past. Citizenship status. So a lot of what we do at the Anti-Violence Project is trying to eliminate barriers. So we tell folks that they don't have to share any form of ID, or documentation to be able to access care through us. And that can be a huge relief for folks, that they can worry if they need to share a social security number or what they have to provide just to be able to get the care that they need and that they deserve. A lot of survivors that I work with too are still recovering from injuries from the violence they've experienced even years ago. So a lot of our work is trying to advocate and getting them linked up with affirming and caring medical professionals that can really understand their health in complex ways. And again, someone that they feel safe, that they can open up to, of where these injuries came from and how long they've been experiencing them for. With past negative experiences and fear of law enforcement, an example of that is I was working with a young woman who had fled from her country with her girlfriend, and when they had resided there together, had often experienced stalking, harassment. Their home was broken into, threats of intimidation. But when she went to the police, they essentially said there was nothing they could do to help protect her and her girlfriend. So just allowing us to be here and offering care to LGBTQ folks can be really life-saving. That what I hear often from people is that they have so much fear about returning to their home country, and being able to just access any space that makes them feel heard and understood and accepted and celebrated can be really restorative and really healing for folks to have that hope that they can continue to receive this type of care and see the future. And with speaking on the strengths of LGBTQ community, there's so many. This is just a few that I listed here of connection and love and resourcefulness, creativity. We have so many visionaries, pioneers, artists within our community. So it's really, really wonderful just to be able to see folks continue to use their own strengths. And I always put that in the letters of support that I write for folks too. And what makes them them? What are they passionate about? What are they looking forward to in their career? What are things that they like to do? A lot of folks that I work with want to volunteer. They want to give back, that they've had these experiences from NIJC or from AVP, and they want to be able to be there for other asylum seekers too, and other LGBTQ community members. And a lot of folks can, again, just feel this sense of weight being lifted from them, and us being able to highlight all the wonderful things that they have, because if they've constantly heard these messages over and over again, that they're not enough, that they're wrong, that they need to be fixed, it can be just really, really wonderful for them to be able to get these words of affirmation and to know that they are not, again, isolated in their experiences. And when I usually do write letters of support too, I try to capture someone's words. And a lot of the words that I hear from folks is, I finally feel alive, or I feel free, or I feel I can finally be me, or I feel I can breathe. And that is incredible that folks are finally able to start a new chapter in their journeys and focus on thriving, not just surviving and just trying to get from one moment to the next. And we talk a lot about in our field of vicarious trauma, particularly for therapists. If we're hearing a lot about the traumas and tragedies that folks have experienced, it can be really difficult for us to sit with that and to take care of ourselves. And for sometimes therapists or service providers can start to experience those same trauma symptoms as our clients would. What I also have learned more about, and I've experienced myself, is vicarious resilience. So also being able to hear stories of folks being able to share their moments of triumph and share their moments of success, that I've been able to see their growth and their progress, whether it is recovering from trauma or being able to get their dream job or being able to claim themselves and be able to not feel as much shame, can be really encouraging and empowering for me. And it makes it incredibly rewarding, the work that I do. And then with getting folks connected with AVP, can reach out to our 40-hour LGBTQ violence resource line that we're available Monday through Friday. If folks can't reach us right away, they can dial number 2 that they'll get connected to the Illinois Domestic Violence line, which is 24/7. And can also certainly feel free to leave us a voicemail, can reach out to us via email if that's safer, that we're happy to support folks with safety planning, getting started with our services. And if folks have questions after this too, can feel free to reach out here as well. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for that, Caitlin. A lot of the things that you were talking about in terms of, being an artist and an advocate really resonates with Greta's story. So I'm really excited to get to introduce her to everyone. Greta is an NIJC client. She spent over 2.5 years in immigration detention, where she suffered horrific abuse and mistreatment by the guards. But also while she was in detention, she created the artwork that you see around her in that image, which also, if you've ever been to NIJC's offices, is now hanging in our main conference room. So she's a really, really talented artist. And she's also a tremendous advocate and visionary for herself and for her community. When President Biden was elected and when he assumed office, Greta sat down and wrote a letter to him where she was like, these are my experiences that I had in detention, and this is what I believe would make the immigration system a fairer and more just place that was more welcoming to people like me. You can see the first page of what is actually a several page letter right there, just because I think it's really nice to see the physical object. Some of her suggestions for the president included language and civics lessons for new arrivals to ensure that they're able to really adjust well to their new home and get used to new norms and a new culture. Second chances for people caught up in the criminal immigration system. Greta herself has a DUI and was given a second chance by a judge, and really credits that with being able to turn everything around and to just have that second opportunity to show that she is able to, get a job and be part of society. She talked about ending for-profit detention. She felt like she's extremely clear in the letter that for-profit detention means that people are treated like livestock, and that is absolutely unacceptable. And just overall presented this incredibly clear-eyed, powerful view of the changes that we need to make from someone who has experienced everything firsthand. So getting to meet and talk to Greta was an incredible opportunity, and I will drop a link to her full story in the chat so you can read more about her. If we could go, thanks. So Greta is just one of the many, many people that NIJC talks to and helps throughout the years. Here are some of the highlights from 2021 so far. So notwithstanding the unprecedented challenges of the last year, pandemic, new administration, all big changes, NIJC and our partners have identified ways to reform the current immigration system's violations of fundamental rights, and to transform it into one that honors these rights and follows the law. Through affirmative litigation and engagement with national policymakers, NIJC has stopped disastrous immigration policies, and we've advocated for passing incredibly helpful ones like the Illinois Way Forward Act. We've also worked one-on-one with thousands of individuals and their families to secure life-changing immigration legal help, some of which we've heard about today, whether it be new DACA or work permits so that people can kind of get started, have a professional life, be able to take care of their families, or whether we are helping them reunite with their families, like in the case of Max, or filing civil rights complaints for those who have been mistreated in detention. We have done almost 63,000 pro bono hours provided just in fiscal year 2021. We've secured the release of 74 people from immigration detention, and each one of these hours, each one of these cases represents a huge, huge difference in someone's life. So now Ellen's going to talk to you a little bit more about how you can get involved with this work.
Thank you. Holy moly, we're almost coming to the end of the hour. You've heard from lots of people today about the great work that we've been able to do. If you have questions or comments, curiosities, that you'd like to know more about, some resources maybe that we can point you to, please drop them in the chat right now. But what you've heard about today is that the immigration laws and policies of this country directly impact individuals and families. These individuals are clients, but they are also the pro bono attorneys that get involved, and the social service workers, NIJC staff. We are all impacted by these laws and policies. And that is why together as a community, it is so important that we maintain these connections, we support each other, we're persevering through these challenging times, we celebrate our victories, and we continue to share hope. So there are different ways that you can get involved. This is for attorneys, non-attorneys, people all over the country. And so we would ask you first and foremost to please stay informed, right? We put forth a lot of effort to keep people updated via blogs and web posts and policy actions, stories. And so please stay informed, continue to join us. We are right now also in our annual appeal, which is our largest fundraiser to support our work and keep it going throughout the year. So if you can donate, there's a link right there. We will include these all in a follow-up email because I understand that the link is not active through the PowerPoint right now. So if you'd like to go a little bit further, we'd love that. You can set up an easy fundraiser for NIJC. If you don't, if people don't want to get you, just say, hey, why don't you contribute to NIJC for me? There's different ways to do this. So there's a link there too that you can fundraise for NIJC. We are looking for language services. So we do definitely engage with volunteer interpreters, volunteer translators. Some of the languages that our staff and our pro bono attorneys can benefit from are Dari and Pashto. Obviously, with the Afghani situation, we are ramping up efforts to respond there, and we need these two language supports, please. Burmese also, and Gun, which is a language of Benin in West Africa. So those languages, of course, and French, Arabic, Polish, Spanish are also welcome. We'll drop a link in. If you're an attorney, you're welcome to represent individual clients. We also, for attorneys, particularly in Illinois, we have a presentation coming up on the 10th. It's a policy update and rapid response volunteer opportunity. As immigration detention winds down in Illinois, we need to advocate for our clients and appreciate your support there. And then there's a special ask for people across the country, and this is to continue to communicate with your members of Congress. We have one opportunity here to push forward a path to citizenship and a Build Back Better bill. So we'll include more information there. And of course, if you're really inspired and you want to join this awesome team, we are hiring full-time positions and interns. So please check that out. So we have just a few minutes left. We did excellent on time today, and I'm really grateful for that. Before we get to the Q&A though, I would ask that if possible, you hold up your device right now, and there's a QR code, or you could type in the survey link and just let us know what you thought about today's presentation. What hit home for you? What are you more curious about? Maybe something that you didn't like, we can do better next time. Something that you want to hear more about, I think I already said that, but we'd love to hear your feedback. So I think that wraps up the content of today. And I know, let's see, we had one question. We had one question in the Q&A that I believe we've talked about. So Amanda and Kate, if you're on also, if you guys want to come back on, they were talking specifically about formats for asylum cases and kind of the amount of work that goes into those cases, right? Kate, you highlighted all of the time and the strategy to going forward with those cases. So the question here is there a standard format or outline for asylum cases for judges? Kate, do you want to give your experience on that, how that worked for you as a pro bono attorney?
Sorry, the question is there a standard format?
Is there a standard format for asylum cases to present before the judge so that you know what to expect, or lawyers know what to present? How was your experience?
Yeah, so the court has a manual where they provide guidelines and expectations and the type of filings that you're supposed to provide. for us, Olga and I are corporate attorneys, so this is not just our day-to-day type of legal work, and so we also got a lot of support from NIJC to help guide us in what we're supposed to do. Our firm internally also has pro bono attorneys that focus exclusively on that, and so that they can provide the other attorneys at our firm with guidance. And so we had, previous examples, but a lot of it ends up coming down to the experience of the client. So, Max's case was very unique to Max, and therefore we did have to do unique legal research to address his case, and then, help him prepare his affidavit and prepare a compelling brief. But there is a lot of guidance along the way that helped us.
Great. I see Olga. I think you're still on too, Olga. I'm sorry I didn't call you out there. If you have anything else to add, or Amanda, your experience in just kind of guiding judges and guiding, pro bono attorneys or clients through this process too. As you explained, it's quite a lengthy process. How do we manage this with all the variety?
Right. So I think Kate answered it very well. I think it is first, we, if you go to immigrantjustice.org, we have a lot of sample briefs and motions and indexes and things like that that can be really helpful when you're putting together a filing. I also recommend looking at the Immigration Court Practice Manual. I think the most recent one is from December of 2020, which kind of gives you the general kind of requirements for immigration court. So that's really important to follow as well. But like Kate said, it's very dependent on, the evidence that you're going to present is very dependent on the client's experience. Obviously, you want to fully brief how the client is eligible for asylum. So we do that by briefing each element of asylum and explaining how the client meets each of those elements. The client's affidavit is one of the most important pieces of evidence that you can present, because it tells the client's story, explains exactly what they went through and why they're eligible for asylum, and their credibility is judged based on that affidavit and the testimony that they give. So that's one of the most important pieces of evidence. And then you try to provide as much corroborating evidence as you can. There's police reports, medical reports, hospital records, statements from family members or friends who were aware of the situation. But like Kate said, it's very dependent on the client's experience.
The client experience and probably the client posture too, right? I see here, Linda, you put in that living in Honduras, you heard that people never actually make it to the United States, right? Because of some of the policies and the times that they come in and the laws that are impacting at that time. We do have quite a bit of information on that as well. Title 42, the MPP, the Remain in Mexico programs, and the efforts that we're doing both on the individual client level, plus litigation, plus policy and advocacy. So I would say, please, check us out. Andrea, you ask about when is the government going to end Remain in Mexico? There's been lots and lots of changes. So I would say, please check out some of the resources. We'll drop them in the chat here too. We are ending now though. So I just wanted to say a couple extra words of thank you to our community and for all that you do. And as we go into this holiday season and we spend it with our loved ones, may we recognize that our community is what gets us through. And so we thank you very much for all that you do, and we wish you the best as the year ends. And in this new year, we will pick up with the Policy Corner presentations as well as these Justice in Java in January and February. So with that, we will sign off and thank you for your time today. Bye-bye.